Moving on, our next session is a fireside chat. Hear perspectives of CXOs from global enterprises as they share how their GCCs pivoted to meet changing market expectations, leverage new digital tech to support business growth, and the lessons around resilience, agility, and partnerships they learned along their journey. Our speakers for this session are David Almeida, Chief Strategy and Technology Officer, AB InBev. David serves as Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer, and before that as Chief Integration Officer and Chief Sales Officer ad interim, having previously held the positions of Vice President, US Sales, and of Vice President's Finance for the North American organization. We also have with us this afternoon, Dr. Shez Partovi, Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer, Royal Philips. Dr. Shez is a serial entrepreneur and has launched several health IT companies, including two on telehealth. After a decade of clinical practice, Dr. Shez transitioned into executive roles at Dignity Health, where he served as its Chief Health Information Officer and Chief Digital Officer. Chairing this session will be Srini Krish, President Global Services, Fiserv. Srini is currently responsible for leading an organization of 10,000 plus engineers who provide services across engineering, infrastructure management, business process automation, product management, quality assurance, centers of excellence, business analytics, and insights. It's a pleasure to have you all join us this afternoon. Over to you, Srini.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Justin. And I want to take a minute to thank NASSCOM for this opportunity to be able to speak to some of my colleagues in this industry. Look, there couldn't be a more apt time to discuss about the new frontiers that is going to drive the growth of GCCs here in India. We have seen the resiliency and the agility and the ability to be able to partner with the ecosystems over the last few months. And I'm sure everybody would agree that what we have witnessed in the past few months has been a tremendous transformation. It's obviously been fueled by the pandemic, but the GCCs have adapted, I would say, to the new normal with a lot of determination. Whether it is the resiliency that's been displayed or the business continuity and being able to excel in the remote working model, more importantly, to be able to engage with empathy and driving pride in a virtual workforce has been tremendous. From delivering on client expectations and to embracing on emerging technologies has been the key sort of event that we've been watching. The global innovation centers have taken the center stage to lead the engineering and the innovation mantle for the globe. And we have seen excellence across everywhere, and including to what we need to get done for our stakeholders. The traditional definition of what used to be a GCC is continuing to evolve rapidly, as we know. Whether it is driven by efficiency, the scalability, the cost effectiveness, they are fast becoming the digital engines or the digital transformation centers, if you want a new moniker, for the global businesses. In this scenario of emerging and advanced global digital technologies have been fundamental in evolving the role of GCCs. Just to name a few, the data and analytics, whether it is machine learning, robotic process automation, blockchain, artificial intelligence, I could keep going on. But what it's done is in turn has created a highly qualified workforce for the future. And that is being continuously upskilled by all of the GCCs here. The changes paved by the pandemic we see today, in my opinion, are here to stay, right? Whether it is the digital transformation that we're seeing across the globe, the new ways of working, or the hybrid model that people have started referring it to, whether it's the nature of collaboration, or whether it is interacting and servicing and managing our clients. All of that is here to stay. We have an excellent panel here. I'm delighted to be joined by such esteemed guests today. David Almeida, the Chief Strategy and Technology Officer from AB InBev, Dr. Shez Partovi, MD and Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer from Royal Philips, representing the brands that have unparalleled focus on innovation and digital transformation in enriching the customer experience. Surely everyone is eager to hear your thoughts on how the power of ecosystems, resilience, and agility is fueling the growth of GCCs here in India. So let me start with Dr. Shez, with you first, if you don't mind. How has the Innovation Center's role evolved in the era of digital transformation, supporting your organization's growth strategy, if you will?
Thanks so much. Thank you for the invitation. Philips Innovation Campus in Bangalore was set up gosh, now almost 25 years ago. And a lot has changed in Philips since that time. When we started that software center, it was sort of just focused on software, as I said. Now it's grown to become like a mini Philips. There are 4,000 professionals that are there, from designers to clinicians to technologists, and they play an absolutely critical role in driving innovation through the whole company. So we use that center for things like, we recently announced a solution called the Radiology Operations Command Center. And this is a solution that helps radiology departments run their operations at maximum efficiency in a sort of a distributed manner. And that was an example of innovation that came out of the campus there. Another example is sort of the mobile obstetrics monitoring software that is really helping perform prenatal risk stratification. It allows to receive diagnostic assistance and help assess patients' progress via a mobile device. These are the kinds of innovations that are coming out of our campus in Mangaluru, and over the past 25 years has grown to become a digital powerhouse inside Philips.
That's amazing. I just got something that you said, that it is a mini Philips within Bangalore. I refer to Fiserv here in India as a microcosm of the global Fiserv as well. That's amazing to hear. It's great to hear that people are creating things that are saving lives around the world. So thank you for that. David, over to you. You know, being a large beverage organization with a large scale distribution model, supply chain, consumer base, what role does digital acceleration play in achieving commercial and operational goals for you?
Thanks for the question, Srini. And first of all, good to see you, Dr. Shez and Srini. Thanks for the time here and for all the participants. I hope everybody's doing great and we can move forward from this pandemic in great shape. And I look forward to be able to come to India to see some people soon. Absolutely. So for us, you know, a lot of companies talk about digital transformation, and they talk about digital transformation. It almost seems like it's a digital transformation for transformation's sake. You know, it's technology for technology. Right. And we have a little bit of a different approach. We think that it's all about how we elevate our business using technology, right? It's most important. So not just pursuing technology, but pursuing technology to really, you know, think about how we can accelerate our business. And from our perspective, there's a few big things we're doing. So for example, on the one of the biggest assets we have when you think about our rights of way is very few companies visit 6 million mom and pop customers on a daily basis, or a weekly basis, sorry. And we are one of the few companies that do that. So we used to have a model where we would go visit them with a traditional sales rep. Sales rep would go in, would take orders, you know, would go in and talk to the customer and say, give me this, that, and the other. And that was a great model that served us very, very well. But in the digital world, where, you know, now the people in general are used to doing everything in their lives digitally, that model turned itself on its head. So for example, we have pioneered a new system called Bees, which is a digital order taking system where our customer can order when he wants at his own desire, supported by algorithms, right? So we have deep analytics, you know, suggesting to him what kind of SKUs he should have, what prices he should promote, right? And really kind of generating better sales performance for him and for us, strengthening the ecosystem. That's one example. So as we look across our supply chain and we think about digital, we look at ways digital can accelerate our business, right? To really make an impact. And we've made a lot of success. The areas that we're really focused on are, one, really empowering our small mom and pop customers. You know, you're in India, you've seen those, right? The small bodegas, the small accounts, family-owned businesses that don't have access to digital transformation, well, we can provide that bridge for them, right? When we think about e-commerce, as our consumers move online and stop shopping online, how can we meet them there with the right intelligence? And finally, how can we know our consumers in detail and use analytics so that we don't intrude on their lives, right? And really create value for them by serving up content that is useful and that really adds value. So we're really excited about everything we're doing, and this is a unique time in terms of the new technologies that's out there. When you think about cloud, you think about e-commerce, all the things that we can really do to transform our business. And again, it's not about technology or digital for technology or digital sake. It's about really thinking how we can use technology to elevate our business.
That is great. You know, you said it again. I was going to summarize it, but let's not use technology for the sake of technology is an absolute right thing. And just so you know, our company Fiserv has about the same number of merchants that we deal with, roughly give or take about 6 million, globally distributed. So I clearly can understand, you know, what you're saying. Over to you, Dr. Shez. You know, one of the things that I think when we sit back and think about what this pandemic has done, it's definitely accelerated the change in consumer behavior, right? Whether it's the demand of no touch, low touch, what role do you think the digital acceleration will play in achieving commercial and operational sort of, you know, touch points with your consumer base?
You know, today we live in a world where for consumers, their best experience anywhere is what they expect everywhere. And that means that healthcare needs to evolve and innovate and to remove all the friction points, because I can tell you that in healthcare, it's not our best experience anywhere. And so if you think of it, some of us use FaceTime, some of us use Zoom, and we've become accustomed to that great experience of being able to reach. So now that's expected of healthcare. We use things like WhatsApp and iMessage and to chat. Chatbots are what is expected in healthcare. So consumers have shifted from saying, look, if I can get this over here and it gives me a delightful experience, why can't I get that in healthcare? And so that has become, that focus on experience has become one of the hallmarks of the digital transformation, and where we have an incredible opportunity to really advance. Now, what that means for Philips is, and I think it means this for any company actually, is that you stop to think of things, as David just said, you're not going tech forward. You want to go patient backward. What is the experience they want, that they need? And because you know what, quite frankly, quality is table stakes. It's not like anyone gets up and says, well, I want low quality. Quality is expected. If you ask anyone, they expect quality, but they're looking for experience that's frictionless. And so we've gone essentially in most of us across the world from bimodal experience of either going to a clinic or going to a hospital to expecting that seamless experience across a diverse set of inputs, whether it's texting and chatting with a clinician or voice or video or some sort of a retail clinic or your own doctor's office or imaging center or a hospital post-acute. So this means that you have to, as organizations, look at digital transformation at many points of access, not just, I need to make the clinic better. Well, what would we do if we couldn't go to the clinic? The pandemic made us ask those questions. So, and at Philips, we're focused on those accessible, affordable, sustainable innovations that accelerate that customer-consumer demand that's evolved out of the pandemic. And for us, we're fortunate because Philips operates across the continuum of care, from personal health and consumer health to in the home to, of course, equipment in the hospital and so on. So we span the spectrum, and we're bringing innovation at every point to be able to improve what really we've realized a need for access and simplicity and affordability. A great example is the Philips 3300 ultrasound machine, which is a good example of, that was actually devised and developed in Bangalore and at the GCC, and it's an example of a technology that's done in a way that's affordable and accessible to many locations across the world, not just perhaps your academic medical centers. And so those are the kinds of impact that the pandemic has brought, this splaying and broadening of access with a need for affordable, accessible, sustainable innovation, and we're leaning into that.
Well, you definitely are, and it's been a lifesaver around the world to be able to have digital access to clinics and doctors and consultations. So it's been an amazing journey, and we've all learned a thing or two. David, just you talked about big data and you talked about customer analytics for deeper understanding of consumer behavior. And we all know that those behaviors may change from region to region and country to country, right? And you're a global player. What trends can you share with us that you're seeing as you're looking at the consumer behavior?
Sure, Srini. Before I talk about consumer behavior, I just want to pick up on the point Dr. Shez made, that I think if you look at the past 10, 15 years, lion's share of value creation in the world has come from the digital companies, right? And a lot of companies look to them to say, what can we learn? What can we emulate from them, right? And for me, what we've learned is that the strongest point that we've seen from them is this idea of this very acute focus on the end consumer to identify pain points and then really do ethnographic research to see what those pain points are and solve those pain points, right? So we traditional companies have been in business for a long time. We kind of lost sight of that sometimes, right? We focused on what was important to us. We started looking at our own belly button and saying, this is what I need to do to grow my business. This is what I need to do to get that next sale, et cetera. And we lost touch with that consumer. I think the digital giants have taught us that in order to win, what's really important is that you really understand in detail what are the pain points that your consumer have, and how do you solve those, right, to really go get them. And that's been an inspiration for us, right? And I think obviously COVID has accelerated those things. From a consumer perspective, there are a few trends that have really kind of like accelerated, right? So obviously, from an end result perspective, you look at e-commerce, right? So e-commerce was growing prior to the pandemic. And I think people have said that basically the pandemic, did a 5 years in one type approach. As people stayed home, they kind of like, if you look at the curve, right, it accelerated by 5 years. And what's interesting is people's habits, once they get used to something, it's very hard to go back. So just to share a little anecdote here. I don't know if you guys, I don't know how big Uber is right now in India, but we're here in Uber and coming out of it was like very recently, Uber, before it used to be very convenient, very easy to use, very affordable. And recently, for some reason, like the price of Uber have jacked up like two or three times, and it used to be this much, now it's 3 times more, but it's very hard to go back, because once you get used to that convenience and once you get used to that thing, I mean, how are you going to give up a service that works so well that you've built your life around, right? So very, very sticky. So I think e-commerce is here to stay is one thing, but then other things have accelerated as well, right? So this idea of health and wellness, right? I think people, as they became kind of, were able to stay home a little bit. And at first, like the first wave was probably a wave of indulgence because of anxiety. But after that, people actually became a little more mindful, taking care of themselves, right? And really thinking about exercise and thinking about how they could kind of occupy their time in a little more healthy way as they were isolated, all those things. So I think this trend of health and wellness has accelerated. And then this idea so for example, like one big occasion that really kind of accelerated for us was the idea of family meals, right? So it's very specific to our business, but as people were locked in together, that elevation of that family meal type occasion was big. And we think that things like, home cooking, those things are going to continue to be there. And how do you penetrate that? And how are you present to really accelerate those things? And I think as we come out of the pandemic, one of the things that we've been monitoring is this idea of euphoria. Okay, so people were kind of restricted for a long time, for 12 to 18 months. And as they come out, they're really, really, really eager to go see their friends. They're really eager to go out and about and go do things. It's been tricky, right, with the different waves, with Delta and all those things, but we see it very, very clearly. People are eager to go out. Obviously there's always going to be some permanent changes to the way people think about, kind of safety, all those things. But we actually think the consumer is going to come back very, very strong in a sense and wanting to go out and be social. And we have a huge role to play in that and helping bring people together.
That's great. A couple of things brought a smile to my face. There's this term called revenge travel, right? People are like at home and they just want to get out and do something.
Yeah.
And, you talk about family meals. I was just saying to my family this afternoon, as we start going back to schools and going back to the offices, I'm going to really miss the 1:30 p.m. sit down lunch with the whole family,
Yeah, for sure.
But that's life. We move on. So thank you for that. And Dr. Shez, you talked about, the omni-channel healthcare and the virtualization that's starting to evolve. In your experience and opinion, what's the gap, right? What is the innovation that we should continue to see that can bridge the gap in having a seamless consumer and digital experience in your specific
so some industries are fortunate in which they can own your experience end to end. Think of an example. For example, if you go to university for 4 years and you live on campus, the university owns your experience end to end. They can make it good or bad. Perhaps even a better example is if you go to Disneyland with your kids, which long time ago when my kids were smaller, but they own your experience end to end. From the time you walk on the campus, heck, in some places, even the hotels are on Disneyland campus. The rides, the food, the shows, where you sleep is owned end to end. They can give you an incredible digital experience. Healthcare is the opposite. The healthcare journey is fractionated by the plethora of places where you get care. So there's nobody that owns your experience end to end. And as a result, data liquidity and interoperability is the key thing that will bridge the gap of being able to give high quality, high experience care. Because if you don't, the opposite, if you don't let the data move, then of course you don't have the best information at the point of service, point of care, and you can get into either repeating things or even not having information leading to inappropriate diagnoses or treatment. So data liquidity, interoperability is an absolute requirement given the nature of healthcare services globally, in that it's fractionated between places. And so, in fact, Philips did a Future Health Index study in 2021, and that report actually found that in 55% of Indian healthcare leaders identified the lack of interoperability as a consistent challenge to barrier to implementing digital health needs. And if you sort of broaden the lens to the world, that number goes down to 37%. Now, the one thing I'll add is that it's not just about liquidating data and allowing it to be interoperated. It's more than that. You have to actually derive insights from that data. Let me give you an example as a final thought. So if I told you on your phone, you have access to all the national weather data. There's a huge database on your phone of 100 years of weather data. Okay, I've liquidated data, given it to you. But so what? All you want to know is it going to rain tomorrow? The data itself is useless to you. You want the interpretation of that data. So that's an extreme example, but of course, the apps that tell us the weather tomorrow, whether you should bring an umbrella, you get an alert at 7 a.m. says if you're going out, you should take an umbrella. That's what you want. And so when you look at whether it's a clinician looking for an insight as to what's the likelihood of this patient's journey, or whether it's a patient self-managing their health, what's the likelihood that I'm going to have an asthma attack today because the ozone index is bad and the pollution is high. We want to be able to go from data to insights and help both the physician, the nurse, the clinician, as well as the patient. So those are the gaps that we need to close. And when we do, we will be able to virtually give an end-to-end experience, even though the actual places where experiences are, healthcare experiences are garnered are separate. So those are the data liquidity and insight generation interoperability. Those, I believe, are the three sort of foundational things that we need to address.
And that is very profound. I can see that. And the interoperability of data will eventually bring about, experience that could be global in nature. You could be sitting in India, consult with a physician in the US or vice versa, right? That's amazing. Thank you for that. I'm gonna close with one question that I think I probably want to ask both of you, given the context of the subject about leveraging the ecosystems and partnerships around the GCCs. Can you talk a little bit about how you've leveraged the tech incubator centers or the startup collaborations to be able to drive innovation, whether it's in your centers or whether it is globally for that matter? So maybe I'll go to David first, and then I'll come to you, Dr. Fez.
Yeah, so Srini, we one of the first things we did years ago was set up outposts, right, to really partner with the digital ecosystem and for innovators to come help us solve business. So one of the initiatives we have is our 100+ incubator, which is focused on bringing innovation to the company that's going to allow our company to survive for the 100 next years. So we talk about sustainability initiatives, right? So talk about people that are in the space of sustainability that can help us really find ways to do the things we do to drive and ensure we're more sustainable, such as reducing water consumption, reducing our carbon footprint, all these things, right? So we've been very successful at connecting with the most forward thinkers in the world and providing them the resources they need to be able to further their ideas, to be able to add back to what we need and really fulfill our objectives, right? So we're experts at beer, right? We're great brewers. We make the best beers in the world. We're not, the foremost leaders in technology or in the digital space, and we have to have the humility to understand that there's thousands, millions of entrepreneurs out there, people with great ideas that we can learn from every day, right? So we're actively seeking them out to help us advance and help solve the problems for our consumers and our customers. So that's the way we think about it, and we've had a lot of success with different companies. We've actually basically founded third-party startups, right, that have an idea that we funded and that have really grown together with our business, helping us solve problems. So that's a very important mindset that we have. That's
a great point. I mean, humility is always a great thing, and I do agree. You guys make the best beer in the world. Dr. Shez, over to you.
Srini, I would say that there are three things that would highlight that for us at Philips. First, in order to work with an ecosystem, your technology needs to adopt open standards. Because if you have a closed standard, the ecosystem, rightfully so, shouldn't be interested. And so first and foremost, our foundation, for example, our Health Suite platform, which runs everything at Philips, is built on open standards so that when partners want to step up to the plate, they're not being forced to adopt proprietary mechanisms and interfaces and so on. So first we begin, so eat our own dog food, which is the foundation is open standards. Second is we have an entire team that is dedicated, our venture team is dedicated to sourcing and finding terrific partners around our hubs, like the one in Bangalore, to see who are the ones that will help complete a portfolio and delight the customer, delight the consumer. So that team is actively sourcing and looking for ecosystem partners. That's number two. And then the third one, which sort of goes to the comment that was made by David, which is we have a whole team committed to circular economy, where we actually are trying to source things locally and, of course, recycle things locally. And so this idea of source and recycle locally, by definition, means that you are looking for local partners and young companies or established companies so that you can be local in the community. So those are the three categories in which we sort of lean in with in order to make sure that we work with the ecosystem physically around us.
That is great. That was very insightful. I'm just going to take a couple minutes just to close for the audience here. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to David, you and Dr. Shez. This was indeed a very interesting and impactful conversation, and I couldn't agree more with the points that both of you made. Personally speaking for myself, being at the helm of Fiserv Global Services here, I'm excited about the future prospects of how digital transformation is going to impact digital payments and the financial technology space that we're in, making the customer experience to be more engaging and easy and secure. One of the things that I always wonder about is the industry transformation that continued to move forward, the disruption that's happened in the past months, and has been, we've been responding to this with an accelerated digital transformation, whether it is about adopting and investing in cognitive capabilities, artificial intelligence, or whether it is, using digital to catalyze innovation. The future of digital innovation, I believe, lies here in India, lies in data management largely, right? And accompanied with usage of multiple, automation tools, right? Last but not the least, it's about delivering the services, you would agree, but safely and securely for the, for our consumer bases, right? I couldn't be more happy about having this conversation. I do believe that the GCCs are transitioning from used to being a transactional partner to being a strategic partner. As I said at the opening comments, global capability centers are starting to transform to global innovation centers. Over here in India, we clearly are blessed with a very strong research and development domain expertise coupled with availability of the right talent pool. And it doesn't come to me as a surprise that we're expecting to set up over 100 new GICs over a period of 1 year in India. And I believe the projected revenue is over $350 billion by 2025. And all of this tells me that there's still a huge opportunity for us to be able to continue to contribute, be more strategic in our thinking, and continue to advance the digital transformation for the global ecosystem, if you will. I just want to close by saying thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, NASSCOM, for the opportunity to be able to chat with Dr. Shez and Dr. David. And again, thank you again for joining, and hope you guys all stay safe, and look forward to seeing you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Srini, and our speakers, David Almeida and Dr. Shez Parkrovi, for that brilliant discussion.